Hi everyone, good morning. Today I'm going to go over the answer to problem of the day number 3, and our topic today is on writing an equation of a line in slope-intercept form. So you'll see on the screen I have the question that was handed out, and the directions literally just say write the equation of the line pictured in slope-intercept form. So we first have to think, what is slope-intercept form? All right, so if you remember from last year, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, right? So m is our slope, right? And there are many different ways to find the slope of a line. So there's a formula to find slope between 2 points, but most likely you're going to count rise over run, right? So underneath here, I'm going to just write rise over run. The other thing in this form that we have to find is the b, right? And the b is our y-intercept. So that's the point where our line, in this case, or our function, crosses the y-axis. So sometimes that's called the starting point of the line, because if you were graphing the line, you would usually start at the b, which is the y-intercept. All right, so I think first finding the y-intercept is probably the best place to start, because then we have a point that we can start with, and then we can count the rise and run for the slope. All right, so when I'm looking at this, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, which is nice of being on the iPad, and I'm going to find the point where I intersect the y-axis. Right, so remember the y-axis, all right, is a vertical line. All right, so I'm going to change the color since the line is in blue. So we'll go with purple. All right, so right here is the point where I cross. All right, so that's the point 0, 3. All right, so that means that 3 is my y-intercept. All right, so far for our answer, we have a y-intercept of 3. Now we don't have the number that goes in front of x. That's going to be the coefficient there as our slope, and we haven't figured that out yet. So like I said, how we're going to figure that out is by counting rise over run. In order to do that, I have to identify a second point on my line so that I can count. So I'm going to look at where there is another clean point. So this looks pretty good. So that's the point 1, 6. All right, so what I would do then is count rise over run. All right, so rise and run. So I go up 1, 2, 3. That's my rise. Try to make that as neat as possible. And then I run 1 unit. So my slope is 3 over 1, or my m. All right, so maybe I'll write that over here. M is 3 over 1. My b is 3. And if I'm going to clean up the line and make my answer look as nice as possible, instead of writing 3 over 1, I would just write 3. All right, and there is my answer. That's the slope-intercept form of the line. Now, just to show you a second way to find the slope if you didn't want to count, the counting is very good if you're a visual learner. If you are someone who might prefer a formula or just to practice a different way of doing this, you have previously learned this formula. Slope is the change in y over the change in x. Right? So we might say y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It does not matter which point you make x1, y1, x2, y2, as long as you're consistent. So perhaps in this example, I want to make the y-intercept, because that was the first point we labeled, x1 and y1. And then the point 1, 6 that I chose as x2 and y2. So if I wanted to calculate the slope this way, I would take those numbers and substitute them into my formula. So y2 is 6, y1 is 3, so 6 minus 3, x2 is 1, x1 is 0, and then I would simplify the fraction. So I would complete the subtraction in the numerator and get 3, the subtraction in the denominator is 1, and I come up with my slope of 3. So that's just a second method or way to find the slope if you wanted to find it algebraically instead of by doing it visually. All right, so that's two different ways to get your slope. And again, we were asked for writing this equation in slope-intercept form. So what I've just boxed and starred, y equals 3x plus 3 is our final answer equation for this line.